Last thing for you, Lance. We've got a good fight this weekend at the 168-pound division. Christian Mbilli back in the mix. Christian Mbilli undefeated 168-pounder, 85% knockout ratio. But he is, if we're being honest, largely untested. He had a tough fight against Carlos Gongora a couple of years ago. But other than that, not a lot of names on the resume of Christian Mbilli. Sergiy Derevyanchenko is certainly a name. We know Derevyanchenko from the absolute wars that he had against Daniel Jacobs, against Gennady Golovkin, more recently against Jaime Munguia. This guy comes to fight, and when the lights are shining the brightest, he tends to show up. I don't know what Derevyanchenko has left. He's in his late 30s, and those wars do take something out of you. I don't think he looked that great in his last fight against Vaughn Alexander, which was a comeback fight, but here he is on the big stage once again, matched up with another guy that is being billed as the next big thing. And Mbilli's top 3, I think, in all 4 of the sanctioning bodies at 168. Yep. There's already conversation, Lance, about doing Christian Mbilli against Jaime Munguia, on a top-ranked show at some time later this year, early next year. What do you think of this fight? What do you think of Christian Mbilli? Is he the next big thing? And is he going to get tested against Sergiy Derevyanchenko?
It's hard to say because, like you said, we really haven't seen that much of him. And it's hard to know against the caliber of the competition that he's facing, just how good he is. Obviously, facing Derevyanchenko, you've got basically the ultimate gatekeeper of the division. I mean, you were there when he fought Golovkin. That was an absolute war. And I think some of us who were at that fight walked out of the garden thinking like, hey, did the right guy win this fight?
I had a draw that night. I've had every single Derevyanchenko fight, either a win for Derevyanchenko or a draw. I thought he beat, except for the Jamal Charlo fight. Charlo beat him clean. Jacobs, I had a win for Derevyanchenko. Golovkin, I had a draw. And Munguia, I had a draw. So he's legit. And look, Mbili's all offense. Like he is all firepower. I don't see how this fight can miss stylistically. Like I think it's going to be an absolute banger.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Derevyanchenko can win this fight, So, it'd be interesting. What I think is fascinating, Chris, to watch, you talk about the Munguia fight, but the bottom line is that Mbilli, he wins this fight. He's number 1 in the WBC, and the WBC mandatory, after everything that happened with David Benavidez, they are going to be first in line for Canelo Alvarez now after this fight with Berlanga. So, believe it or not, it's Mbilli, not Benavidez, who's going to be the guy who can say, like, bring it on, Canelo. And you could, again, we know with Canelo picking Berlanga, he may go that route.
We saw Canelo give up that IBF belt. Like, does it not? I feel like I talk about this all the time, but it's worth mentioning again, given what you brought up. Like, does it not behoove him to just keep the Ring Magazine belt, like the one you don't pay sanctioning fees for? Everybody knows you're the king at 168. Yeah. Let these other guys fight for belts. Let Diego Pacheco fight somebody for a title. Let Munguia and Mbilli fight for a vacant title. Like, there's a lot of good 168-pounders who are not on Canelo's level. Like that, I thought it was interesting that that there was no step-aside fee for the IBF title, William Skull. Look, if the WBC orders Mbilli to fight Canelo, like that would just be the icing on the embarrassment cake, right? Like I believe it'll happen, but imagine that. Like you spend 2 years not ordering David Benavidez to fight Canelo, and now you're going to order Christian Mbilli to fight Canelo. But I guess it brings back to the original point. Like, do you think Mbilli, like you've watched him, like do you think he's the goods? Like, are we going to learn something about him in this fight?
Yes, we will, because obviously he's going to be tested like he's never been tested before with this, offensive, tough dynamo that is Derevyanchenko. I believe that he has not lost too much. I think he's going to give him a great fight, and it's going to be very entertaining to watch. I'm completely sold that, we are going to have an entertaining fight, just like we did last Saturday, Chris, when we knew it was coming, and it happened. So I would definitely say watch this one.
Yeah, And I feel like I'm kind of rooting for Derevyanchenko at this point. Like, he has just been like the bridesmaid and not the bride how many times over the last few years. So close. The B-side fighter who doesn't get the benefit of the doubt in in these key rounds. You'd like to see him get one win, big win before his career is over. Because I get the sense from talking to people around Derevyanchenko that if this is a tough fight, and there's really no doubt that it's going to be, if this is a tough fight and he winds up on the losing end, there will probably be a push for him to walk away because he has taken a lot of punishment over the last few years. Does he really want to rebuild against lesser fighters, one or two low-level fights before getting another young lion at 168 at this stage of his career? I don't know. Maybe he does, but I think there'll be people in his camp telling him, look, you had a good career. It made some really good money. He's been advised really well. It made some really good money over the last few years, even without securing these wins. It might be time for him to call it a day. But I encourage people. That fight is it ESPN or ESPN Plus? One of those two. I apologize to our good friend Evan Korn for not knowing the exact broadcast information. But it is on an ESPN platform. It is going to be an excellent fight, and the winner will be a top contender in the 168-pound division. Lance, good stuff, man. Always appreciate you taking some time to join me. Check out Lance at boxingscene.com, breaking some big news over there, and big fight nights over at payperview.com. Lance, always appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chris.